Thanks for tuning in to As the Tire Turns podcast. Before we dive into this week's episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, AME International. Tire professionals insist on AME. I'd also like to recognize the AACF. For over 65 years, the Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation has stood by those in the automotive aftermarket industry and their families during life's toughest challenges. Since 1959, with the incredible support of industry partners, AACF has provided vital assistance to individuals and families facing financial hardship due to unforeseen circumstances, such as floods, earthquakes, storms, fires, catastrophic medical conditions, life-changing accidents, devastating fatalities, and more. AACF offers a straightforward application process and a quick turnaround time for those needing support during critical moments. Visit www.aftermarketcharity.org to access the application and learn more about how AACF can assist during times of need. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our automotive aftermarket family. Support AACF today. And now, As the Tire Turns. Hi, it's Keith Jarmer with As the Tire Turns, and today I'm with Kim Boccardi, VP of Marketing for Titan International. Hello, Kim. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon.
So I'm going to jump right in, and my first job was at a grocery store.
Okay.
And you learn real quick that, something didn't scan. Somebody would say, it must be free. And it's funny, like maybe the first dozen times, but after that, right, it gets old real quick. Yeah. So I'm going to go straight to the name. And because while it doesn't have the same spelling as the Spirits Company, how many people bring it up when they meet Kim Boccardi?
Oh, man. It was a really good name when I was working in sales because it was not forgettable. But, is that the Boccardi? That's like the drink. And I usually say, if it was, do you think I'd be standing here?
Yeah.
That's usually the joke is I think I'd be on an island somewhere if it was spelled the other way. But I always say it's not a party without Boccardi. So.
Well, there you go. I like it. I was going to say something good to work with.
Yes.
And so, because I'm not quite asking that, I am going to say that because I know most people have either like lean towards the brown liquors or the clear liquors.
Yes.
Are you a rum drinker? Or no?
I am actually a Fireball drinker.
Okay.
I love the cinnamon stuff. My favorite, I always tell people, don't do it as a shot. Just 2 shots over ice. Just sip on it for a couple hours.
Really?
That's my favorite drink.
The mix between the hot and the cold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I know the purpose of this, right, is for during my year as the president of TIA, people would say, what's it going to be like? I really don't know, but I thought this is a way for me to somewhat journal and interview some of the people that have helped me along the way and some of the movers and shakers and the future of the industry maybe. So I certainly consider you a mover and a shaker.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Of all the people I've got lined up, I think you're probably the one I've known the least.
Probably, yeah.
But I know that you've played in some team sports, I think, in your industry. You're tall, right?
Usually it's the, what's funny is I get guessed as a volleyball player the older I get. So I don't know how to associate that. But I was actually a basketball player, and I got to be part of that 7% that gets to play in college. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So in business, I guess, right? Any correlation between you being in team sports and how that's impacted you in the business world?
Yeah. What's funny is I try not to lean towards hiring athletes, but you find that those that succeeded at it, or at least worked hard at their craft, right? They have this innate drive that doesn't have to be taught. I think I also find it even outside of athletics with someone who maybe excels at playing an instrument, someone who works hard at playing piano and still in their adult life, or they share that with someone else, right? So especially people who played in athletics that coach or do skills camps or volunteer their time in their community. anything that you have that skill that you've worked your whole life at and you're willing to continue to pay it forward, those kind of are like my people. And I think when you find people like that, you know that no matter what seems like unsurmountable task, they're just going to get it done. Because when you're in the huddle and it seems like an unsurmountable task of 10 points down with 3.5 minutes left, how are we going to do that? They're shooting the lights out. Those people have grit. Yeah. Those people have determination. And even if you still lose the game, they're still going to come back the next time they're down with 3.5 minutes and still try again. So I think there's something to be said about that craft that you've worked hard on your whole life. Now, my oldest is not necessarily an athlete. He's a golfer, but not necessarily kind of a 3-sport athlete. But he's an excellent saxophonist, and I find that in him, where he just kept going. He just kept trying, no matter how bad he sounded. And it's funny. It's funny now. He goes back and he watches old videos. He's like, "Oh my God, that's what I sounded like." And now he plays beautifully, and it's continuing no matter what is in front of you to continue to craft whatever you're working hard at. So yeah.
I would agree. I'm amazed at how much I reflect back on of all the things that I've learned of my high school basketball coach, right? And some of his wisdom, that
it didn't hit you as wisdom at the time, but now
he was kind of the Bobby Knight of high school basketball.
Oh, and I'm from a Hoosier. I'm from Indiana. I can identify with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Parents definitely didn't appreciate him. He would occasionally throw a chair and have a tirade, but cared passionately about the sport and growing and developing young guys, and so it was nice. They just named the court after him, and so some of us hadn't seen. I still see him on occasion, but some people hadn't seen him in 25, 30 years, and there's kind of a family reunion. Everybody got back together, and it was like old times. So
I think those coaches, I think back at bosses I've had, I think back at coaches I've had where when you're in your younger years, you just don't think that wisdom is going to stay with you or that they had any wisdom at all.
Right.
And last few years I was coaching a middle school girls basketball team, and I found that I was throwing too much at them. And so we decided to take a new mantra, and every girl I said, find something you can be good at this game.
Yeah.
On this game and this game only. I want you as an individual to decide, how am I going to contribute to the team?
Yeah.
Because they were all thinking I needed to be the shooter. They were all thinking I needed to get steals. I need to get rebounds. They were all thinking too much and trying to do too much. And all of a sudden it was like the girl who could be the rebounder was rebounding, and the girl who didn't have to worry about scoring was stealing the ball, and the girls who I needed to score now had a little bit of pressure taken off of them, right, to score and not necessarily do everything. And that was like a enlightening thing. And I thought back to myself, and I'm like, that was literally what my varsity coach was trying to tell us. Yeah. And if we had only listened. So I think, we're here at Titan University Summit, and I'm not asking every single team member to be a professor. Right. I'm also not asking every team member to be running the show behind the scenes on all of our logistics and everything that we've touched in this building. And I think when you start to ask people to listen, this is what I need you to do to contribute to the team, all of a sudden they're doing that well. And then all of a sudden the team is doing well, instead of everyone feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to be in everything and do everything and contribute to everything. And it's moments where you think, I wish I could call up that coach, and be like, yeah, so you were right.
Right.
And to all the coaches out there,
it's kind of a selfless, right? Really help, make an impact far beyond, wins and losses. 30 years ago. So,
No, as far as picking, being an athlete, I think there's things you learn not only about yourself and how you perform as an individual, but how important that is when it contributes to the team itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, did you see the Barbie movie, switching gears this summer?
So I have to admit I did not, and I feel like I really should have. My daughter has also not seen it, and so we have been trying to align our schedules to actually see it together.
Did you have a Barbie growing up?
Yeah, so I did. Believe it or not. I feel like my generation actually had some of the doctors and some of the lawyers and some of the, executive, professional Barbies before they were out there in the market.
Yeah.
I had a friend whose mom made us little outfits and stuff. And I mean, we had lab coats and we were scientists. And, but we also had, we had all of the things that I think Barbie has evolved into and from. We had those too. I mean, I think I had a Christmas and I had a prom and I had all the dresses and stuff. But I knew from an early age that I was going to be a mom. I was going to work hard at that, and that was going to always be my primary. But I knew I wanted something else for me, and I knew I wanted to be something that could impact other people's lives beyond just my kids.
Well, so what I was going to ask is and I've not seen it either, but I've got kids that participated in Barbenheimer, I think.
That weekend, yes.
They did both the same day, right?
Yes, my oldest did, yes.
But they, understand the message, and they came back, so it was impactful and so on. But I guess, when you're in your youth, and same thing to me, right? You think you probably want to grow up and be a teacher, or, whatever the jobs are that you see and emulate and so on. But not too many people that I know of, right, say, I want to be in the tire industry. So I'm going to ask, what is your journey? Right?
Oh, man. Growing up on a farm, I didn't live on farm. And basically, as an athlete, my job was to make sure I paid for college. I came from a farmer and a nurse, both hardworking parents, a hardworking farming family. But anytime we were on the farm, we had chores. And you went to Grandpa and you saw it was on the list. And I always ended up with cleaning the pool, weeding the raspberry bushes, cleaning out the garage, washing equipment. I mean, I never got like the cooler, projects on farm that the kids who lived on farm got to do. And I think when I went to college, I had this mindset. It's like, I want to get as far away from the farm as I can. And I want to do my own thing. Now I remember the day they sold the family farm, and I thought to myself, man, maybe I should have been a farmer, to keep it in the family. But my first job was for ADM and was for working for their feed division. And I remember when I got the call, I will never forget this. I was sitting in the car at QU campus and at my college campus, and I got the call that I got in the job, and I hung up and I just screamed with excitement. And I looked up at the heavens and I'm like, I know that's you. Like, I just knew it was my grandpa, I was like, I knew it was you, and you're pulling me back in. And I don't think it took very long for me to feel immediately acclimated to ag and immediately acclimated to those that feed and fuel the world, you know what I mean, and keep the world moving. And so my career has moved between feed to seed to feed ingredients and now to tires and wheels and primarily ag. Right. But I'll tell you what, the exposure to the OTR segment, I have the utmost respect for anyone in any of these segments of tire and wheel business. And I hope that when I'm standing up in front of them and I'm telling my story and my exposure to this industry, that I hope they understand how genuine I am. That my first 2 years I spent time out in the field, and I listened to our sales team, and I spent time with the dealers, and I continue to do that. I'm not done learning. I don't think I'll ever be done learning about this industry, but I really do continue to try and understand the challenges that they have out in the field that we can help them with. So
yeah. So what type of farm?
So we were row crop, and my cousins had some pigs and raised them. And one fair I got roped into because my one cousin was showing in 2 different barns, and he's like, you got to go show. And I literally probably looked like anything else. I will do anything else right now to help out. I do not know what I'm doing. And he's like, you're tall, get in there, slap the pig around, and let's go move him, go move him through the showgrounds.
It's the one where they kind of never take eye contact away from the judges.
I don't know. I don't know if that's pigs or cows, but he trusted me with it for whatever reason instead of trusting another cousin with it. And I did not place well, but he got grand champion in the other one. And it was an experience. But yeah, row crop farmers and, anyone that feeds the world, and I don't want that to sound like a Hallmark card. I mean, that is a serious weight and responsibility. And they literally put their livelihood in Mother Nature's hands, and then they come back and do it again next year. So
talk about responsibility. We are here, as you mentioned, at Titan U or Titan University.
Yeah.
It's Titan's gig, but this is highly coordinated by yours truly. You, meaning not you. And so...
so why not do a podcast right in the middle of it?
Well,
that's amazing.
So you were gracious to spend some time with that. But what is Titan U, and can you talk a little bit about how it's evolved? And it's only my second year, but it's a first-class event.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So before I came to Titan 8.5 years ago, they were doing these informational sessions, and they would bring dealers in, and they would just start whiteboarding. What questions do you have? And they would write them all on the whiteboard. And then over the next 2 days, they would mark the questions off the list. And, there were smaller sessions. And when I came on board in 2015, those guys who were doing that, our product managers and our sales managers said, we really need to make this bigger. We need to touch more dealers in a way that we can get them this training, because we are hitting a good amount of them, but they're smaller groups, and it's going to take us longer to do, and we still have to go out and sell. And so we really put our thinking caps on, and they had kind of done something like this. They had done a gaining traction a couple years prior to me joining, and it was very much like a conference setting. So we all got together, and it kind of evolved over time. And so when we started, we were in a one classroom, with one hands-on area. And then the next year, instead of doing all-ins, we broke them into advanced, and we broke them down into ag and OTR. And then the next year after that, we did a huge summit in Quincy. And then, of course, the COVID years came. So we kind of evolved, and I had done webinars before at ADM, and we did that. And we had 16 weeks of webinars. And then the next year, we did Titan U TV. And then we did boot camp at our plant, which the dealers asked for. And then now we're back here at a summit in Iowa. And the way it evolves has happened almost purely based off dealer feedback. There's definitely things we always want as a management team. There's always things that product managers want to showcase. But for us, this is what the dealers are asking for, and let's give it to them. And so every year, the changes and the evolution have really come from our customers.
From the feedback.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
All right, so wrap it up. I haven't been in the industry for far more than I care to admit. There's only a couple of instances that I can recall where, I've been in a room and just kind of everything's quiet and you kind of realize. And so one of them was I was having lunch with a group in Prineville, and Les Schwab walked in, right? And so, it was like, what's going on? And they just kind of like, look, right? There is cowboy hat trademark,
Yeah.
and so on. But another one was at one of the conferences. I was at the Off the Road conference, and Morry Taylor was the keynote speaker. And so, he's another guy that just kind of commands that presence.
Yes.
So do you have any favorite Morry stories?
Morry is probably one of the most interesting and impressive entrepreneurial guys I have just ever gotten the opportunity to work with. You have to prove it to him. You absolutely have to prove it to him. There is no gimmies with him. And when I first started, interesting story about how I got hired. So basically my boss, who knew I was on my reference sheet, and I was he went across the golf course to my then future boss at Titan and said, hire her. hire her now. Because I had been through a downsizing with them. I was new kid on the block and ended up in the equation, right? And so I was in between jobs from a downsizing, and he ran to Paul and said, hire her now. And I'm forever grateful for him doing that. And Morry, the first time he met me, he goes, so I guess somebody else told us to hire you. And I'm like, crap, and no, and Morry doesn't like to be told what to do. Yeah. So that was our opening, and I said, well, how about I just prove it to you? And there was like this slow burn on the call, and you're like, did I lose you? And he goes, I like you already. Yeah. And so that's kind of how it started. And at one point in time, you just sort of felt him stop calling, and you felt him stop checking in, and it wasn't meant to be like, I forgot about you. It was like, you're not on fire anymore. Yeah. Marketing's not on fire anymore. We just know it was a vote of confidence that I wasn't getting the calls anymore. Yeah. And I get texts from him every once in a while, and we get to work on special projects sometimes. But my favorite Morry story, which he's going to die when I tell this, but we were at a conference, and my husband was with me. And as you know, as a female, I'm a minority in our industry. Sure. There's not a lot of us. And there happened to be at this particular conference for equipment manufacturers, just three of us, just three women in the room. Every single person that walked up to Morry, myself and my husband, reached their hand out to my husband to shake his hand as the new marketing person for Titan. And Morry, the first time somebody did it, walked up and he goes, oh, this must be your new marketing person, and reached out to shake my husband's hand. Yeah. And my husband is in like a Hawaiian shirt and shorts, he's like having a good time. Yeah. And I'm in business attire, and clearly I'm thinking I'm the one you should be shaking hands with. Yeah. And the first time Morry goes, you better correct yourself. This is my new director of marketing, VP of marketing, and I reached my hand out. And Morry is one of those people that is happy to correct you and find a way to sort of then make it a joke, right? Yeah. And he did. He eased that moment, but he had to do that moment over and over and over again that evening. And by the end of the evening, he was like, man, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I'm used to it. It's okay. Yeah. But thank you so much for correcting them and not going along with it. But man, he gave some of those people the hardest time I have ever seen at a big meeting. And he was not afraid to do it. Yeah. He was not afraid to set them on the right path. So,
well, I will share a story that will also might get me killed because as my time on the board of directors for the Tire Industry Association, we have a summer board meeting and have a couple of days of workshops and committee meetings, but spouses will often come along to that, and so my wife, and we have three daughters, right? So my wife was in just casually having breakfast, and so there was a board member, Brandy Sealaff, who was there with her husband, but my wife looked at Brandy and who was on the board, by the way, right, and said, "Oh, are you going on the spouses tour today?" And she's like, "No, he is," right, and I kind of joked with her over the scrambled egg buffet or whatever, and I said, I guess we've got some work to do.
I guess we've got some work to do. So speaking of like work to do, so I have a funny story. So I was in my office late one night this past week, leading up to Titan University, and our cleaning crew came in, gentleman, and he was cleaning, and he walked into my room, and he goes, "Oh, I didn't realize this was a woman's office." And I said, "How?" You pause, right? You practice the pause, and you say, "So is this a chew his ass, or is this a learning moment?" And learning moment, and you say, "Oh, why do you say that?" And he goes, "Well, it looks like it's maybe the boss's office." And I said, "Nope, he's just going to keep digging." And I said, "That's interesting." I said, "I would have thought you would have been a woman."
Right, good point.
And he stops and goes, "Well, I like cleaning, and I like the second shift." And I go, "You see what I did there?" And I just paused, and he goes, "Oh, crap." And then he, we engaged and had a conversation. But I think how you handle those situations says a lot. It's very easy to bark at someone, or it's very easy to assume that they meant anything by it. Yeah. He didn't really mean anything by it. And so I think, you can handle those with a little bit of sarcasm, a little bit of grace, save the other person some embarrassment, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if that meant anything to that guy. Yeah. I just hope that if he has a daughter, he tells her, "You know what? what? You can be literally whatever you want to be.
That's what I
right?
preach to my
And
kids
so,
all the time.
no, we're not quite there yet, but, for a company and an industry that is, just predominantly male dominated, I really would, just as a shout out to my company, I've just never been told I can't do that at Titan. I've been told we want to hear your voice. I've been told that you were brought in to do the job, and it's actually never been a topic of conversation. So I think the fact that they hired me because of what I felt like I could do, and continue to prove that, it becomes a non-issue. And I think there's really not a situation they've put me in or I've been asked to be in where they weren't inviting me to the table. So.
Well, I know you've got to get on stage in probably just a couple of minutes.
Yes.
So any closing thoughts for our tens and tens of viewers?
As far as tires
anything you want to say? Anything we haven't covered or that you want to give a shout out? You mentioned a shout out.
I think, I think over the years, Titan has evolved, and we are Morry in his infinite wisdom just bought up businesses that were failing and saw something in them. There's a message there, right? We continue to evolve. We continue to try and push on R&D, and we've got such a great team. We've got teams that have lived and breathed OTR tires and wheels for 30 years. We've got guys that grew up on the farm. They're running our tires on their own farm. I would just say that there's something to be learned there, that just never stop thinking that you're done learning.
Yeah.
I think it's hard as adults, as parents, as working people to wedge that into your daily life. But there's something to be said about being able to fill a room with hundreds of people who want to continue to learn.
Yeah.
So I take that from Morry, and I take, maybe seeing something shining in others that maybe others don't see. He saw that in every one of the businesses he bought, and they're all performing, beautifully together today.
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
something to be gathered and taken from that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I sincerely appreciate not only the invitation to be here, but also for you taking time out of your insanely hectic schedule this week. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for listening to our very first episode of As the Tire Turns. Tune in next week when we sit down with guest Matt White from the Tire Industry Association.